Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the IVES 960-613 rectangular flush pole is what this is. I have one removed from the packaging, and here it is. Very nice, clean, trim, petite, elegant flush pole. This is what the 960 is. The 613 means, it's supposed to mean that this is made of bronze and that this is an oil rubbed finish. I believe it's actually brass is what that's actually made of. They say that it's 3 inch. Let's put a tape measure on this. Overall height is where the 3 inch dimension comes in. Overall width, about 1 7/8 inches. The inside width of the finger pull area looks like it's about 13/16, I'd say, maybe 7/8. And then about 2¼ inch. Okay. The overall depth of the unit, about 5/8 underneath the face, about 1/2 inch or so. It's going to include a couple of screws, and that's how you're going to attach this to your door by means of this somewhat concealed screw location here and here. Now, what would you use a flush pole for? Let's talk about that now.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
Now, a flush pole is going to be used in those instances where you don't necessarily want to see a lot of hardware, or do you need a lot of, or in instances where you don't need a lot of hardware on the door. They make a very nice, elegant way to not only allow you to most certainly handle sliding doors or pocket doors, because that is relatively thin. The thickness of the face, which I didn't tell you earlier, let me give that dimension to you now. 1/8 inch, 0.126. Okay, so this would work well for a non-handicap compliant sliding or pocket door, but it's also going to be used in swinging doors as well. Okay, you'll very commonly see this in a swinging door, and generally you'll see flush poles mated with a hardware set that's going to include center hung pivots, which are known to be quite concealed, maybe a roller latch as well. Typical applications are going to be pairs of closet doors where you'll have, or single doors as well, where you'll have roller latches in the header or in the strike jamb. You'll have pivots, either offset or center hung. And this is a really nice way to be able to go about getting hardware installed on the door that's completely functional, but doesn't detract away from what the door is inherently. Woodworking company customers of ours gobble these types of hardware up. They're very typical and common. Sometimes in the vestibule or in the foyer of a restaurant area, they're going to have pairs of doors on the sides, and they're going to have some storage there or whatever it might be. You don't need a big lever handle or a lever handle on there as a passage set. You don't need that at all. In fact, you don't want to see any hardware. And going with a flush pole like this is quite nice. This happens to be on the smaller side, if not the smallest side, of what would be considered a more heavy-duty model. Now, IVES does manufacture other flush poles that are going to be the common, far more common items. The 2 1/8 inch, it's not 2 1/8, but it takes a 2 1/8 circular or round flush pole. They have small 1-inch finger poles that are round. They have rectangular versions of this, and then they get into models like the 960, and then they get larger from there, even up to some that are handicap compliant, so they're quite large, maybe 5 by 5, and give you the ability to have a handicap compliant flush pole is what it is. Now, installing this, I've machined for every type of door hardware that exists on steel, on wood, for that matter, and steel doors as well. And I would tell you that how you're going to go about installing this is going to be based on probably what tools you have available to you. You might be doing one of these and you've got a hammer and chisel and that's what you're going to use. Well, you can certainly make this work with a hammer and chisel. You're going to look at the template, which I'll show you in a moment. You're going to locate this, regardless of the tool you use, you're going to locate the vertical dimension and then your back set. And my suggestion, if you're matching other doors, probably match those dimensions. If you're doing 8-foot tall doors, yeah, you're probably going to want to consider something like 55 and 9/16 from the top to the center of this, which is a reasonable size, a quite standard size for a lock prep. If you're going out on a back set, why wouldn't you go with 2 3/4 edge of the door to perhaps the center line of this? Obviously, maybe not obvious, there's no written requirement for where you place this, but I don't see a reason to deviate from those locations where you would install a standard lock in terms of vertical height and the back set. You'll certainly want to audit the rest of the doors. You don't want to put this at a weird height or a height that's not the same as others. I've been involved in a job where no attention was paid, and these were put at a location, long hallway, like a 200-foot hallway, office doors going all the way down. If you remember art class from high school, 2-point perspective, it's just, and so on the sides of this hallway, you had pairs of closet doors. Well, those lock heights all looked really good until they got to the flush poles and they dippy-dooed, and it was awful. And it was only off by about 2 inches, but it was quite, it chafed the people in charge that was like that. And I don't recall if the doors were replaced, but they may have been. And then I've had another customer put it at a weird height and say, why did I put it at this height? I said, I don't know. So maybe look at everything else that's on the job, or make sure that if you're supplying this with other doors, that you've got harmony in terms of where they're located. If you're going to use a hammer and chisel, like I was saying earlier, great. That's a lot of work. It's the least elegant way to go about doing it, but it will obviously work, or you can make it work. If it was me, I'd be using a router every single time. If it was me and I was in a shop setting, I would probably make myself a template. I may not make a template if I've never done one of these, and I will never do one again, because it's just height, width, and then depth. But if I had any expectation of needing to do more than one, I would take the time to make a template. I would go so far as to make a template such that you could shim that off of the bottom of the door if you were going with a uniform height. The thing at is, if I knew that I was doing a job where the undercut was consistent, meaning the dimension from the bottom of the frame to the underside of the door, that's the undercut, to the bottom of the door to the bottom of the jamb. And I knew that height from the bottom of the door, therefore, to the center of the prep was always X, 40 1/4, okay, whatever it was. Because then it doesn't matter if it's a 6/8, 7/0, 8/0, 9/0, 10/0, 16-foot tall door. That bottom dimension is going to be the same. A piece of 1 by 3/4 inch thick poplar, say 8-inch wide, and I would cut that to maybe 48 inch in length. And I would make my preparation based on the size I wanted to net out at, plus the allowance for the guide on the bottom of the router. So all I had to do was square it off at the bottom, flush it at the end, and put a couple of clamps on it. And that I could do really, and then obviously a plunge router. Okay, nice, quick, easy plunge router, and you're done in a matter of a couple of minutes. You're literally done. That's how I would end up doing. Then I would take that template and I would mark on it what it's for, and I would hang it on the wall, and I would permanently have it. So that's how I would go about doing it. Looking at the extended description, let's take a look. Let's switch to the screen view now, and let's take a look at all of the additional information.
If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video.
We are looking at, speaking of looking, let's take a look at some images. There's the packaging, the unit itself. Those pins holding on the piece of decorative metal on the back. Kind of trying to show you where the screw hole is up in here. Close-up view of the finish. And then your screws. Probably a number 6 oval head, maybe by 1/2 inch or so. Now, extended description information is here. Rectangular flush pole. That's your size, your depth, 6 by 3/4. Technical drawing of the item itself. I would certainly put this end away from the edge of the door. The small end is what I would do. Product brochure, let's take a look at that. Flush poles. Different models, different sizes. Now, IVES has more flush poles, and I'll show you those in a moment. But you can just take a dive into here and see the different sizes. They don't have one here that's handicap compliant, but they do exist. Okay. There is also a link to the template. Let's take a look at that. Let's rotate this. There's your 960 technical drawing. That's what the template needs to look like. That's what the prep needs to look like. 1.5 inch wide, 2 11/16 tall, and then 9/16 deep. You're not going to want that to be overly large because you don't want any. You want to minimize the amount of void here between where the screw is going to hit the hardware and the door itself. Okay. Now, there is a link below this video, as seen here, to the manufacturer's page. And from here, you can pull up not only, as we wait for that page to load, there it is, not only all of the IVES products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. And when we click on that, that's where we're going to be able to see all of the other flush poles that IVES has. And I know that a 218 is a part number for a flush pole, so I just did a find function on my keyboard for 218. The 22 is not uncommon. That's a piece of wrought material. Inexpensive, nice, elegant. There's your finger pull. Smaller doors, maybe furniture applications might use this, not full-size doors. There's the ubiquitous 221. The 222 is a little bit heavier duty on a rectangular footprint. This thin 223 is nice as well. 227 a little bit larger, etc. Then the ones that we're looking at in that cut sheet. There's our 960. Tells you that you can get it in polished brass, oil rub bronze, satin nickel, polished chrome, satin chrome. Base material is brass. There you go. Let's wrap up this video on camera.
If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video.
Okay, that's all we have to say about the IVES 960. Nice quality piece of equipment. May not necessarily be in stock at all times. Plan ahead or call us for inventory. Those flush poles that were in the cut sheet, I to date haven't gotten a lot of call or demand for all of those, so there's not enough sales history at this time to justify putting them into stock, but reach out to us. Any questions on the IVES 960 or any other IVES product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.